definitely challenging. It's taking time for a lot of people, and it will continue to take time.
So the Raiders go on to face the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars have lost, 5 of their last 5 games, 5-game losing streak right now. So the Raiders are kind of in good company, but unfortunately for the Raiders, there are some injuries. Davante Adams, still a full participant today after being limited Wednesday with the illness. We knew he had an illness last week. And look, I'm a big Davante Adams fan. I made that film, Derek Carr, Davante Adams, Fresno State. My hometown is Fresno, born and raised. I'm a big fan of these guys. But when people say, oh, he had an illness and whatnot, so maybe cut him some slack for not performing too well. When you're making this much money, $20+ million, and I think once it gets to next year, I believe the cap is $30 million according to Spotrac for Davante Adams per year. You can't blame the sniffles. You can't blame the sniffles. You can't say, hey, my bad, I had to take a Benadryl earlier, so I'm going to be a little slow. No, when you're making that amount of money, you got to put it together regardless. And we saw, one pass play last week where Davante Adams didn't get 2 feet in bounds. There was that. And he didn't look exactly like himself. Now that he's a full participant on Thursday, hopefully he could turn it around. But, like Derek Carr said in the press conference just the other day, talking about his back issue, because he's finally been a full participant. And people have been talking about, oh, Derek Carr, the back issue. Is that why he wasn't playing great last week? And Derek Carr said this himself. He said this himself. It's no excuse. I don't even like to mention it because it's no excuse. You can't use it as an excuse because, like Carr said himself, once you use it as an excuse, then you make it okay to perform poorly. Oh, because I got this excuse. Oh, because of this back thing, right? So anticipate yesterday, Neil Farrell, we're going to need him now that we don't have Jonathan Hankins. He's a limited participant. So hopefully that guy can get ready because this interior defensive line significantly struggled against Alvin Kamara. And I don't know how hot this interior defensive line is going to look against Travis Etienne. He looks like he's doing pretty well. Obviously not as much of a dual threat, but he was looking pretty good. So Raiders run defense definitely has to improve. I feel like in 2018, it was a self-conscious tank year. We're going to tank. We're going to trade away our best players and try to go out there and have Frosty Rucker lead the defense. It was kind of obvious it was a tank year. And now we're having to sort of rebuild with Josh McDaniel's offense. The team is having to learn this offense, even though we have all this money allocated to great players. That's what makes this thing so frustrating. That's what makes it so peculiar. It's very different than Gruden's first year. We got to learn the scheme because he pretty much was mentoring Derek Carr in 2018. And everybody else felt kind of interchangeable. When you look at how the team developed after 2018, a lot of the people who were on the roster in 2018 didn't make it to 2019. Straight up. But this is a little different. Everybody's going to be back next year. Waller's for sure going to be back next year. Chandler Jones and Crosby's for sure going to be back next year. Hunter Renfro's going to be back next year. And Derek Carr, as long as they don't release him after the Super Bowl with that 1 year out, he'll also be back next year. So you got a lot of continuity that is going to happen on the offensive side of the ball. The 3 main targets, Devontae, Renfro, Waller are going to be back. But Waller asked about the scheme, saying it's taken time for a lot of people. Darren Waller admitting that this takes time. And he was asked about this by Austin Boyd of Heavy.com about this taking time. And it was kind of interesting. Let's see what Darren Waller had to say.
Josh McDaniel's offense is considered one of the more complicated ones in the NFL. How do you think the team, you and the rest of the offense has been able to acclimate to?
By the way, Audrey and I were talking about how these type of interviews are very weird. I don't like the camera angle. It's a little too casting couch for me, okay? That was her joke. I'm going to give her credit. She said it's a little too casting couch.
His offense. And do you think that there's still a much higher ceiling going forward?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. It's taking time for a lot of people, and it will continue to take time. You really see guys flourish in like the 3rd year of an offense, but now.
Yeah, see, did you hear that? That's the one thing I have a problem with already. You really hear guys flourish in the 3rd year of the offense. We don't want to be talking about the 3rd year. We needed it halfway through year 1, perhaps year 2, right? Like 3rd year. Maybe he kind of slipped up there, but man, if you're telling Raider Nation we got to wait till the 3rd year, oh, you really see people flourish in the 3rd year. You're gonna have a lot of heated Raider fans, straight up, and I think I'll be one of them.
Now you're starting to see people really turn the corner because there's so many little small nuances, little small adjustments and reactions that you need to have to whatever the defense does, and it's hard. But you can't do all those things perfectly and right all the time. It takes time to really get those habits in the vernacular and things like that into your.
There is some truth to that. At the same time, it's frustrating hearing, hey, we need time. But at the same time, we know that is true. We know that is true. Like there is really high expectations for learning a complex offense in an offseason that's, shorter due to all the rules with the Players Association, the NFLPA. You have less time to practice. It does make it harder for newer coaches with more complex schemes, basically.
Your system. So it's going to continue to take time. Guys guys are going to continue to grow and get better at it. And that's only going to turn into a better offensive product on the field.
I mean, and this is what we have to hope. And this is the gamble. And I talked about this earlier with another caller. This is the gamble that the Raiders are taking and that Josh McDaniels are taking, because we know that these offenses in the NFL are now geared closer to the college offense. They're a lot more simple. You see a lot of shotgun. Very rarely do you see a quarterback taking snaps under center in college football these days. There's no hand underneath the ass anymore of the center these days in the NFL and in college at all, because the NFL is becoming more like college football, allowing younger QBs to acclimate a lot quicker, and allowing receivers to acclimate a lot quicker too. So you see that trend, but there still are people who want to go with the more older, complex schemes. You saw that with John Gruden and his West Coast offense, and you're seeing that now with Josh McDaniels and his Earhart Perkins offense. So you are running that risk where you're saying, you know what, rather than having this short-term success, yeah, we could run a more college, simplified offense, but rather than having this type of short-term success, instead we're going to go for long-term success. We're going to try to establish ourselves a more complex offense over time. On another level, this is a little tricky too, because you saw Tom Brady go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and sort of almost bring New England's offense and that style to the Buccaneers, and it felt like he was able to coach everybody else and make them up to speed himself. Him and Byron Leftwich were able to do that. So if he could do it in a year, you often wonder, hey, why can't Josh McDaniels and the Raiders do this in a year? But perhaps what they were running with the Buccaneers is even more simple than what Josh McDaniels has in his plans for the Raiders. But that's the gamble you take. You're taking this gamble and saying, hey, we're not going to have short-term success. We're going to try to build something more complex and hope for long-term success down the road. Well, you can do that. And then what if you still don't have long-term success? What if it's still, having some trouble next year? Then you sort of wasted 2 years of time rather than just trying to get things going in the immediate, maybe run something a little more simple, like you're seeing a lot of these NFL offenses do, gearing the game more towards college football style offenses. So that's sort of in theme with what Darren Waller is talking about here, I think, So a lot of people are saying Lamar Jackson next year. Oh my goodness. Guys, you guys know I do consume marijuana sometimes, but I haven't had anything that strong. That makes me think Lamar Jackson next year. And Lamar missed the playoffs last year, and Derek Carr didn't. So how great will Lamar actually be if he was on the Las Vegas Raiders? That's actually something to keep in mind, something that's important. The Jags, then you got the Colts, then you got the Broncos and the Seahawks. Broncos are looking better than when we last played them. I will admit that. I will at least admit that. The Broncos do look better than when we last played them. That could be tricky. That could be a problem for you. Then you got the Seahawks, who I think are actually a really talented team. I mean, they're a really talented team, and they've been making plays. And DK Metcalf, we thought he was banged up, but no, he's healthy. Him and Lockett with Geno Smith, and then Walker, that running back, really good squad. Chargers are always competitive. Then you got to play the Rams, who the Rams have had their struggles this year, but they're still a competitive team. So the Raiders getting 7 wins in a row, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Jags and Colts and Broncos, I consider them the favorites there. But then Seahawks, Chargers, Rams, and then the Patriots. Bill Belichick's facing his boy, Josh McDaniels, the boy he produced. I mean, that's tough. That's tough. So who knows? Who knows? But we got to have faith.